Hi everyone, we'll give folks just another minute to join and then we'll get started. Hi everyone. All right, I see some folks are still joining, but we will get started now. Thank you so much for joining us for this virtual event. I'm very excited to turn it over to our panelists of current students. But before we do that, I wanted to just give you a little overview of Harvard Divinity School. So first of all, my name is Sarah Guzzi. I'm the Assistant Director of Admissions here at HDS, and I also attended HDS. I did my MTS in Women, Gender, Sexuality, and Religion. So I have some slides to share with you today. All right, so HDS is located in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and it's one of Harvard's 12 graduate and professional schools. Founded in 1816, HDS is the most religiously pluralistic divinity school in the world, representing over 30 faith traditions, including students who aren't affiliated with any faith traditions. HDS brings together scholars of religion in conversation with religious practitioners as learning partners and community members. Our degree programs lead to infinite pathways with alums in every field and industry who value ethical leadership, religious literacy, and service-oriented, mission-driven work. Here is a snapshot of who is in the HDS community. So this data is from the incoming class that just started. So there are 90 MTS students, 44 MDiv students, and 1 THM student. With the incoming class, 52% identify as female, 32% as male, and 16% as non-binary. The average age is 25, and the age range of the students enrolled goes all the way from 20 through 56. HDS students reported over 30 different religious affiliations. Students of color comprise 36% of the incoming class, and then international students made up another 14%. And then in addition, we have students representing over 99 different colleges and universities that they're coming from, which just highlights that we have students coming from a diverse array of institutions and different academic trainings. So here are our degree programs at HDS. We have 3. The Master of Divinity or MDiv prepares graduates for chaplaincy and ministry, very broadly conceived, or a range of other careers that center around service and ethical leadership. The Master of Theological Studies program, or MTS, enables students to explore deeply and broadly the languages, literatures, thought, institutions, practices, normative claims, and structures of a variety of theological fields and religious traditions. And then the Master of Theology program, or THM, is for applicants who already hold an MDiv and is designed to allow students to explore a topic in great depth or delve into a new topic that impacts their ministry, whatever that might look like. So here are some resources we have at HDS. We have 5 affiliated programs and centers, which you see listed on the slide. And that includes the brand new program for the evolution of spirituality, spearheaded by Dr. Dan McCannon. This supports the scholarly study of emerging spiritual movements, marginalized spiritualities, and the, quote, innovative edges of established religious traditions. Note that there are also hundreds of other programs and centers elsewhere at Harvard that HDS students have access to for programming, funding, and other resources. In the bottom right, you'll see a photo of the wonderful faculty we have here at HDS, helmed by Dean David Hempton in the blue. Faculty are fairly accessible to HDS students and are on the whole quite happy to provide guidance and mentorship. So there were over 230 HDS courses offered last year alone, and HDS students also have access to courses across the entire university, as well as throughout the Boston Theological Interreligious Consortium, or the BTI, which is a consortium of 12 theological institutions of higher education in the Boston area. The BTI offers easy cross-registration, as well as a range of other resources across institutions. For MDiv and MTS students, 50% of your coursework can actually be completed outside of HDS. So students can truly customize their HDS experience to create their unique path through the program and get the preparation that each student needs for their goals. And if none of the thousands of courses available to you fit the bill, you can also work directly with HDS faculty to do an independent study. So it's safe to say that no two HDS students have the same transcript. So here's a little bit of info about student life, and you'll hear a lot more about this soon from our great panelists. The Office of Student Life supports over 35 student organizations every year, and it's also easy to start your own if there's something that doesn't exist that you think should exist. Some examples of student organizations are Queer Rights, the HDS Prison Education Project, the HDS Garden Group, and Third Chapter, a group for students over 50. These student organizations host over 60 student-led events each year, in addition to the over 500 recurring events, which include weekly worship services hosted by faith-based student organizations. The photo you see here at the bottom of the slide is from the 3rd annual Black Religion, Spirituality, and Culture Conference, hosted by Harambe, a group for students of African descent this past year, which brought together scholars and students from a wide range of institutions, as well as from outside of academia. There are also 2 weekly events at HDS, noon service on Wednesdays and community tea on Tuesdays. And then students also have access to events and organizations across Harvard. So this slide is a topic we get a lot of questions about, financial aid. We offer really generous financial aid. 90% of students receive funding, and this is available for the MTS and MDiv programs. We do put the vast majority of our financial aid funding into need-based aid in order to get the most money to the most people who need it. And therefore, we strongly encourage everyone to submit a financial aid application so you can be considered for need-based aid. 10% of our students also receive merit awards, and those are based solely on the strength of the application. Everyone admitted is considered for those. Our baseline need-based package is 75% tuition grant. So as you're planning for graduate school and thinking about your budget, that 75% tuition grant is a good number to use. For folks with more need, we also offer higher packages that cover 100% of tuition, and then some come with a living stipend as well. And merit awards cover 100% of tuition and include a living stipend. And then finally, here is a quick overview of the application timeline. Our application to enroll for fall 2021 is currently available, and the deadline is January 7th. So start thinking about that if you're planning on applying this year. Admissions decisions will be released in mid-March, and if you are admitted, you'll find out your financial aid package within 24 hours of receiving your admissions decision. Here are some ways to stay connected. We have a ton of upcoming virtual events, so take a look on our website. We have current students who are happy to be in touch with you. You can email the Ask Students email address to be connected to them. We've got a great admissions blog, and our Instagram has been pretty active lately, so that's a good way to stay in touch. And then please don't hesitate to email us. We are always happy to answer questions. So with that, I would love to turn it over now for the main event here. So we have some great panelists, so if everyone could turn on their video and unmute, that would be great. So I'd like to turn it over to Katie and Carrie now.
Hi folks, welcome again. I'm Katie Caponera. I'm the Assistant Director for Student Services Programming here at HDS. I support a broad range of activities through the offices of Student Life, Career Services, Religious and Spiritual Life, and the Division of Student Services. I'm joined by my colleague, Carrie Maloney, who I will let introduce herself in just a moment, as well as our panelists. We have a variety of students with us today. I failed to mention I use she, her pronouns, and I'll be here throughout the panel helping moderate our panelists. If at any time during our conversation you have a question, pop it right in that chat box and we'll take a look at it. We'll also have time at the end of our presentation to go over questions. So Carrie, why don't I turn it over to you for an introduction, and then we will move on to our students.
Great. Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Carrie Maloney. I'm the chaplain and director of religious and spiritual life here at HDS. Thrilled to have you with us, and looking forward to maybe meeting you in person sometime soon, I hope. I work, as I said, as the chaplain and director of religion and spiritual life. I use she, her pronouns, and I have the opportunity to work with the whole student body and connecting at the intersection of the intellectual and spiritual life. So I get to do a lot of things, including supporting individuals in their own search for spirituality, their own growth in that, in times of joy and in struggle, and also in connecting our many religious and spiritual organizations that Katie and others in the Office of Student Life work with, helping them to work together and supporting them in their individual respective gatherings. So we have a great deal of fun here, and it's a very vibrant and lively community. We hope that you'll really consider taking a good look at us. We'd love to take a good look at you too. So with that, I'll turn it over to our student panelists and begin with Jess. You can introduce yourself.
Yes, thank you, Carrie. Hi, everyone. My name is Jessica Young Chang. I'm a second-year MDiv student here at HDS. I use she, her pronouns. I moved here to Cambridge from Chicago, and I'm still in Cambridge, so that's where I'm calling in from today. I am here at HDS studying embodied theology, specifically the intersections of Christian mysticism and Tantric Hinduism. And I'm interested in using that discovery, like learning more about those traditions and the ways they overlap, for a career in chaplaincy, as well as potentially more traditional parish ministry.
Thanks, Jess. I'm just gonna go across who I see on my screen. Mary, may I ask you to introduce yourself, please?
Hi, everyone. My name is Mary Perez. I use the pronouns she, aya, her, and hers. I'm a second-year MDiv student. My areas of focus are women in religion and religious literacy, particularly how religious literacy is helpful in education settings in high school, particularly. I'm the HDSSA, our student government spirituality chair, and I'm also involved in the HDS Catholics community and the noon service community.
Thank you, Mary. Molly, can I invite you to introduce yourself, please?
Thank you, Katie. Hi, everyone. My name is Molly Silverstein. I use she, her, hers pronouns. I'm a second-year MDiv student, focused mainly on intersections between psychology and religion, preparing for a career potentially in chaplaincy, potentially in a spiritually informed psychotherapy practice. Yeah, I'm really excited to be here today. I have been involved in the Jewish Student Association and am running that association this year. And I also have been involved in Harvard Buddhist community, as well as various other student groups that have attended, moonlit in, and generally enjoyed. So.
Thank you, Molly. Sakiko?
Yes, Katie, thank you. My name is Sakiko. I use she, her, hers for pronouns, and I'm a second-year MDiv student. I just transferred from MTS, so I'm very, very excited to be really exploring on my ministry, which is in waste. It's a bit complicated question, so do email me if you're interested, if you want to know like what that means. I study ethnography, modern standard Arabic, and a colloquial Arabic, and waste. My hope is to do an ethnography of waste in Lebanon in the near future. And in HDS, I was the president of a garden club last year, and also was a member of Third Chapter. So I'm excited to be here. Thanks.
Thank you, Sakiko. And Shimfang.
Thank you. Wow, that's exciting. Hi, everyone. My name is Xianfeng Shi. I use she, her pronouns. And as you probably know, or if you haven't known, I'm a Buddhist nun, a Buddhist monastic. I'm a third-year MDiv. I am taking a mixture of Buddhist studies and Buddhist ministry at HDS. I have been working with HBC, the HDS Buddhist community throughout my time here, including hosting the annual Buddhism and Race Conference. I also serve on the Noon Service Steering Committee. And another community situation for me is working at the Andover Theological Library. It may sound odd, but working at the library has been a spiritual experience for me.
What a great segue. I think working at the library should be a spiritual experience for everybody at HDS studying there too. It's a great place to be. And as the captain of we're the intersection of the intellectual and spiritual life, I'm all about the library. So now I'm going to turn it over to the panelists again with some specific questions. We have just a few targeted questions for our panelists before we have an opportunity to interact with one another. So Sakiko and Sangfeng and Jess, can you tell us a little bit about something that has been very positive about your experience of engaging the community at HDS?
Yes, so I think I'll go first. HDS has been a home to come back to. I've been actually taking quite a few classes outside of HDS on Harvard campus, and also I'm pretty engaged with the sustainability community across the campus. So whenever I come back to HDS and then all checking in with the HDS cohorts, I feel like I'm at home. I get to ask some questions that I didn't get to explore with people who are not quite engaged with the HDS community and culture. So that's been a really big part of my learning here.
I guess I can go next. So America is a foreign country to me. I came here only as I start my school at HDS. And English is my second language. Well, you may think my English is good, but that's because I'm reading script. And living in an apartment is very different from living in the monastic community and living in a place where Buddhism is not everything. Well, it's actually minority. And engaging in intellectual training in an academic institution that is very different from my monastic training, and it's very, very difficult for me. Yeah, I have been trying not to admit it, but yes, I admit it. But I connect with the lovely people here, like these people you see and more. And I cultivate a sense of belonging here, and that makes life not that hard. I deeply appreciate the community building efforts at HDS. Basically, food and friends work the best. Well, of course, we're not abandoning spirituality. What I try to say here is there are more than adequate events that attract you, feed you. Well, when we were in the pre-pandemic era, and hold a space for you to interact and have conversations with lovely, caring, and open and brilliant people. Most of the time, the conversation partner brings out the part of you that you didn't notice or you didn't even know existed in you. And I think this is the brilliance of the community life here. With that, I pass on to Jess.
Thank you, Shangfeng. I agree entirely. I think that one of my favorite qualities about life here at HDS is the community, is that there are conversations that I can have with people that I can't have with anyone else in any of the other communities I belong to, whether they're local or, communities from another place or back home. There are things that I can say, questions I'm wrestling with, anxieties, fears, pain that I can express that other folks are also feeling. and can speak into in a way that not everybody can. It was a big surprise to me to find myself in divinity school. It was not, not ever something that I thought I would do with my life. And so to find myself here and to find myself having, again, conversations that really matter to me, that also matter to other people, and people who are interested in thinking with me, or people with whom I'm interested in thinking about how we make meaning, how we rejoice, how we grieve, how we feel, how we commune, and not knowing that I can't have those conversations in other places because I've tried. It is an incredible gift. And I should say, I neglected to mention this earlier when I introduced myself, I'm also serving this year as one of the HDS chaplain interns, along with John O'Connor and Kate Harvey. And so the three of us, under the brilliant tutelage of Carrie Maloney, are tasked with helping to facilitate and connect and build some of that community that we all find so nourishing and so meaningful. And this year, I really get to have my fingers in a lot, which is so great. I'm so lucky, and it makes me wish that I could like split myself or clone myself so I could be in even more places than I'm able to be right now. But the community here is an incredible gift, and all of the ways in which we students nourish ourselves and nourish one another by being in community is cannot be overstated.
Thank you all so much for those insights. I really appreciate you sharing those, your thoughts and your experiences. We as a community, we really focus on providing a robust community experience, but there are things we need to improve. There are places we need to grow. There are certainly ways we can continue to be better in community. So I'm going to now ask Molly and Mary, if you could talk to us a little bit about what you have found challenging with regard to community at HDS.
I'll share. I have to admit, when we received these questions earlier, I was thinking through this more in terms of like my personal challenges, in terms of balancing schoolwork and spiritual community, and I think that still definitely applies to this question. I mean, HDS is a place where there is just a lot going on all the time, and that's it's a great strength, and it can also, I think, be a challenge, especially when what we're all trying to do here is spacious, and a lot of us are trying to think through questions and situations with a contemplative mindset, and slow down and cherish and experience things fully. So I think I did find just balancing everything in my life at HDS quite a challenge last year, and I think it's improving, and you get better as you go along, and you learn to be less of a perfectionist for sure, and you learn what's most important to you. I mean, there is just so much spiritual community at the school, different groups, as you've heard, but also there's like a ton of spiritual communities in the Boston area, and a lot of those are very worth exploring, and might actually like enliven and enrich your spiritual life more than some of the groups at HDS. So sort of finding that balance, finding what you are drawn to and want to address, I think can be a challenge. Yeah, but I mean, the greatest like challenges can also be its greatest strengths. So there's no shortage of communities to get involved with, and spiritual experiences at HDS and in the larger Boston area.
Thank you, Molly. I was going to say a very similar thing, that my greatest personal challenge is how to fit everything on my calendar that I want to be engaged in, and combating that sense of perfectionism, and I think also meritocracy. definitely a challenge, and what are the spiritual resources that we have a need to cultivate within us to really come up against for many of us, and as an institution, meritocracy starts to be perfect. I think also institutionally, like many institutions, we are wrestling with how do we be an anti-racist, anti-oppressive place, an institution, and how does that permeate all the things that we do together as a community, as individuals, in our courses, in our communal spaces. And I think, like you were just saying, Molly, what is challenge is also blessing and grace. And I think there are so many people who are engaged in this work together and are contributing to even more spaces for us as students and as community to show what really matters to us. And we will be a stronger community after this year in this process.
Molly and Mary, thank you for those honest and thoughtful answers. We are not all things to all people. We have a long way to go. And it's important that you know that as you're considering HDS. And we cannot be who we are until everybody comes and puts their hands to the work. So we're grateful to have the hands and the hearts and the minds that you see here present, but also those that they represent, our colleagues who are not in this Zoom room with us. We're all striving to do our very best, and failing as often as we succeed. So thank you for that honesty. Sakiko, Molly, and Mary, what have you found spiritually engaging or formative during your time at HDS, on and beyond our campus? As Molly has pointed out, you are in an environment in Cambridge and Boston that is a thriving religious and spiritual context for many, many different traditions and experiences. So some of what you might have found formative and engaging during your time at HDS may have happened in and through the HDS community, and some of it may have been beyond the HDS community, to which we have many vibrant connections as well. So would you offer us a few thoughts about that? Maybe let's begin with Sakiko's.
Thank you, Carrie. So I don't quite belong to sort of established religious groups. I know there are many HDS, but I'm still trying to figure out what spirituality means in general. But given that we are HDS, where I get to sort of not define, but say what spirituality could be, I would say it might be something that stabilizes myself in such a ever-shifting world, and I do experience that that sort of stabilizing moment at HDS, and that definitely would be one of the places is library. And obviously now the library is closed, but another place is not quite a space, but time. So whenever I reach out to my cohorts, whenever I reach out to Carrie, whenever I reach out to Chris, the choir director, and then also my professors, they're willing to spend time with me. And that is so sort of stabilizing for me. And I don't know if that would mean spiritual for other people, but at least for now, that's how I understand as spiritual engaging, I don't know, moment.
I can follow. I chose HDS over Catholic seminary. I identify as Roman Catholic, and it was really important to me that I engage with spiritualities that are really different from mine. And that has been so incredibly opening, heart opening, and soul opening for me to get to be part of a community of seekers and questioners and people who are curious about each other. I loved when I first got on campus that people came up to me and said, I've never met a Catholic before, tell me about that. And like that sense of openness and willingness to engage has really been both grounding and opening for me.
Thank you both. I feel similarly for sure, just in terms of the time on offer from professors, from my peers. You know, I was just, while you were speaking, Sakiko, I was thinking about a reading and research course, which is like an independent course I'm doing this semester with one of my professors, which is a class that I'm designing on religion and psychology, focusing on Judaism. But the professor is a professor of Buddhist studies, Charles Hallisey. So it's one of these things at HDS where you might be a Jewish student with a thesis advisor who is an Anglican priest, like one of my friends. There's really a lot of intersection between different traditions, and things don't necessarily have to be straightforward or aligned in a clear sense to make sense for a course of study or like a course of spiritual practice at the school, which I really love. And also this course, doing this course with him this semester has felt almost more pastoral than academic. And I really like that about HDS. I like the blurring of the lines between what feels like spiritual care or just like a heart-centered experience, and what feels more like a head-centered, like academic experience. So I was also thinking in particular of like being a part of the Harvard Buddhist community and then taking a class on the Lotus Sutra with this same professor, Charles Hallisey, and reading passages from the Lotus Sutra during before and after meditation sessions with the Buddhist community. So that sort of blurring of the boundaries between what is coursework and what is my own spiritual or contemplative practice is really, I love that. And as somebody, as many of us on this call, or many of us at the Divinity School, I think, are, I'm kind of a non-traditional divinity student. I didn't grow up in a tradition, and like Sakiko, I'm still very much learning what my spiritual practice and traditions mean to me, and this sort of blurring of academic and spiritual is a really great way for me to explore those things.
Thank you both very much. Or thank you all very much, excuse me. So may notice a pattern, but we're gonna now turn it to Jess and Shenfang to tell us what have you experienced that's been spiritually challenging during your time here at HDS. You may have already touched upon, some folks may have already touched upon similar themes, but please share your own experiences as to where you've been challenged or where you have found challenges.
Shenfang, would you like me to start this time? Okay. So I think that my greatest spiritual challenge has been around the idea that, again, I find myself in divinity school at all. And so maybe this answer will be useful for people who are thinking about div school, but are kind of like, why am I thinking about div school? Yeah, similar to what Molly was saying, like, I didn't grow up in a tradition, or like, I don't want to be a pastor, or, people who study religion usually do it like this, and I want to do it like that, or like, I don't even know why I'm interested in this, I know that I felt this itch, but I was really uncertain about how I was going to get it scratched. And I think one of the things that has been most challenging for me is that I self-identify as an interfaith person. So a lot of my spiritual practice is informed by Protestant Christianity, specifically in the Black church. And also a lot of my spiritual practice is informed by wisdom traditions of Hinduism in South Asia. And in many other spaces, not HDS, but in many other spaces, I have felt like those needed to be mutually exclusive and could not be because they both lived so fully in me. So coming to HDS, I think it has been at times challenging for me to find and feel what it is to allow those traditions to intersect in my experience, like not in necessarily in my own personal practice, but in the way that I make that practice transparent or accessible to other folks in my community. And a lot of the folks that I've met at HDS specifically, I mean like faculty now and denominational counselors, have been really permissive and really interested and excited about how to make an interfaith experience and an interfaith ministry live, and how they can support me doing that work. So even as it's been challenging, it hasn't felt like an obstacle. It hasn't felt like folks around me with more power or influence than I have are saying like, well, no, you can't do that. They're saying, wow, that's really interesting. Talk to us more about how that feels. How can we support you in that? How can we help you develop a thing? Which is really exciting because again, like I said, I have never experienced anyone affirming that so profoundly in my own experience. And so, you know, that kind of, I don't know what I'm going to do with this MDiv degree, although I know I want to do something. I'm not a person who knew that she wanted to be a pastor from the age of 16 or 12 or 18. And so like, can I fit here? Is there a space for me here? A lot of that anxiety was present for me my first year, and finding my way through that was difficult. And there were people all around me. And like I said, faculty, staff, administrators, as well as folks in my cohort who wanted to help me do that work. So even as it was challenging, I never felt completely alone in that challenge. There was some self-determination and some like self-starting that was required and is required. And you know, I have a phone full of people who want to support me in that work. So even as it has felt like a struggle, it doesn't feel like a struggle I'm in alone.
Wow, it's so interesting. So unlike Jazz, who comes from the interfaith mixed background, I'm from a more traditional and, you know, just one simpler tradition. However, and I find, wow, we share the same, you know, why am I here? What I'm doing, like, what do I want to do with my time here? Oh, you know, it's the same. It's so interesting to hear that. So I am from a traditional community in Chinese Buddhism. The way that we are taught to respect the sutras and the tradition is very different from how the scholars, the professors, you know, the students would treat them here. I'll never forget, during the first semester, I took a class on Buddhist scripture, that famous now, probably is getting famous professor, and the professor brought out a very poetic translation of a text. And I remember mumbling to myself, is this really spoken by the Buddha? Because it's too romantic. And furthermore, the professor even suggested the euphemism for sex in the language. It could never have occurred to me because a Buddhist scripture is supposed to be serious, teaching you non-attachment, mindfulness, rather than, you know, being romantic and even hinting, you know, that side, that part of life. But what it revealed to me was that Buddhist tradition live with the people who keep them alive. At the time, there were at HDS Buddhist monastics from Theravada tradition and also from Tibetan tradition. They have very different practices from I do, from me. They eat meat, they eat onions and garlic. And the Rinpoche from Bhutan even had a girlfriend. I cannot deny, however, that they are also upholders of Buddhism, of the tradition. In person, they're all enjoyable and respectable people. So to uphold my tradition and answering the needs in the world today, that's my take on. takeaway. I need a better understanding of how my tradition came into being as it exists today. And in a broader sense, it's helpful to understand my tradition in contrast to different traditions, to different philosophies, and different cultures even. And community life is certainly a fertile ground, a make possible space to facilitate that understanding, to facilitate transcendence and transformation, to allow transformation to happen. So I'll stop here.
I wish we didn't have to be so brief, because I could just stay with each of you for long conversations on all of these things. I hope you're beginning to see what a vibrant and compelling community we have here at HDS. Lovely people, thoughtful and smart. We're going to wrap up with one final question for everybody, if you wish to answer it briefly, however you want. And this has to do with what, if anything, has surprised you about spiritual, religious, or community life here at HDS. I'm going to call on Mary to begin us.
I have been surprised at how welcoming individuals are to participate in their own journey. I feel like I have received so many invitations just to be with people in their journey. And whether that's over coffee or ice cream or listening or community tea, or that I think has been a surprising gift.
Molly, would you like to say anything?
I think what surprised me is how much I've learned from my peers, and how much my learning has been facilitated by the offerings of my peers, whether it's been, being led in yoga by Jess, being led in ceremony at noon services. There's any range of experiences I've had that have been facilitated solely by my peers, that have really moved and affected me. So I think I came in expecting to be mentored by professors, and I didn't expect that. So it's also been a wonderful gift.
Sakiko?
Thank you, Carrie. I am really surprised at how moving noon service is. And that is not to say that I didn't think at all that noon service was going to be like moving. It's so moving that sometimes I can't quite bring myself to noon service every Wednesday. And I think there's something to be explored there, but I just didn't think that this kind of encounter was going to happen at HDS. I don't know what I was thinking before I joined this community, but yeah, so this is a surprise.
How about you, Jen?
I will echo what I hear in Molly and Sakiko. I think I am maybe not surprised in like the I didn't expect this sense, but like surprised in a delighted sense of how easily I feel the spirit moving in all of the offerings that the HDS student community shares with one another. I am also regularly moved by the quality and capacity of thought, of work, of insight, as well as of ceremony and ritual that my colleagues and classmates offer in classrooms, in noon service, in any of the other like official HDS services like Seasons of Light, or I don't remember if there's like a special name for like the Thanksgiving service that happened last year, but it was awesome. As well as just the kind of grassrooty, on the fly, and sort of cobbled together, emergent, that's the word I want, emergent experiences that come up from the HDS student community. When I witness my colleagues and classmates doing and making incredible things, it reminds me that I might have the capacity to do and make some things that other people will experience as valuable and resonant. And so I'm really grateful for what I receive, for the spirit that I receive in being in community with them. And I'm constantly delighted by it, moved by it.
Beautiful. And Sung-Hwan.
Yes, well, thank you all for, I echo with, I just keep on nodding my head and to everything that you were sharing. And for me, to witness the various ways that people make meaning, create spiritual practice for themselves is eye-opening. And the community events, the noon service, and the rock cafe conversations, the classroom conversations, or they are the spaces that a lot of time what that happens. So yeah, it's really, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. I'll just add, I think I certainly can't speak for all of the staff, but I know we all had a lot of conversations over the summer as to how would community life continue to thrive as we are all in our homes. And it's really solely due to the energy and the generosity of the students, many of whom you see before you here in our panel and beyond. Jess hosts weekly yoga class. Shinfang hosts daily Buddhist meditation. Sakiko is hosting weekly waste talks and recycling talks. Mary and Molly have served on the student government. And in so many other ways, they are all continuing to engage our community. Before this Zoom, I was at an Afro-Caribbean dance class at our weekly community tea that I had to pause myself early, so I wasn't needing a shower before I came to you all here. Jess popped in on the heels of her yoga class. The Buddhist community will host us in noon service tomorrow. Even as we are all in our living rooms and bedrooms and kitchens, the community is still really thriving in new and in creative ways. And, I think that is such a testament to so much of what the students here have shared with you all today. So I'm going to stop talking and I want to open it up to questions from those of you attending. Feel free to pop them in the chat function or in the Q&A. We're happy to answer whatever questions you have about religious, spiritual, and community life. Or if you have questions about application processes, financial aid, writing supports, accommodations, classroom culture, we, myself or Carrie or Sarah, who's still here, and any of our students are happy to, answer any of those questions you may have. Okay, so Jacob asks, is there a difference in financial aid between MDiv and MTS? Sarah, here you are.
Hi, great question. There is not, for most of the scholarships we give out, the financial aid, it's treated the same for both programs. There are a few different types of merit scholarships, and so one of those I believe is specific to the MDiv, but there's also ones for the for anyone. So as you're thinking about financial aid, you don't have to worry about the difference between the two programs.
So another question. Thank you. So first, thanks for your contributions. Wanted to get an idea of how y'all got over imposter syndrome while applying. being an undergrad applying to grad school, sometimes the process can seem daunting. I still can't believe I got hired at Harvard. I don't think I'm smart enough to work here half the time. So what do any of our students have to offer?
I would love to respond to that question. I applied to HDS because someone told me to. A dear friend of mine had a, I'm getting an echo. Did I do that? I did that. Okay, how about that? Is that better? That's better. Great. Sorry, everybody. So a dear friend of mine had a sister who got her MDiv here, and had come to visit her and was like, "Oh my gosh, it's the greatest place in the world. You should totally apply there." When I told her I was applying to div school, and I thought, okay, whatever, let's just do it and see what happens. And then I came for a visit. I guess around this time, 2 years ago, and I was like, "Oh, there is really something here." And so, I mean. Imposter syndrome, I find, are words that I hear used repeatedly about folks at Harvard, particularly when you're new to Harvard. I happen to be teaching a class for an incoming cohort of students in the School of Public Health, and they're using that term a lot. So like, it isn't just div students, public health, education, business, whatever, law, we're all kind of like, oh my God, they're all gonna find out. But like, the truth is, we're all just people, and we're all just here because we want to ask questions and think about and talk about the things that are important to us. And we gather around those topics, whether they're public health or law or medicine or religion and spirituality or meaning. And so, I mean, my unsolicited advice would be, someone has to get in. It might as well be you. So just apply. If you think you're interested and you think it might be a good fit, just try it. Because if and when you are accepted, everyone around you in this space will do everything they can to help you succeed. So the question of, I don't belong here, I'm not good enough, I don't deserve, I didn't earn, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, that's a kind of spiral that you can put in your brain if you decide to, but it's also something that you can turn the volume down on. A, because we're all sort of feeling it, but B, because it's not really real. It's just the hamster wheel our brains run on when something like this happens. I don't know if that's helpful. I hope that's helpful.
Thank you, Jess. I try and live by, when I'm thinking of applying to something or asking a question, is the worst they're gonna say is no. And that's not the worst thing that could happen. I know, all of the applications are read by humans, looking for that, that spark, and anybody can have it. So why not try? Okay, question for Jess. What does your study of mysticism at HDS look like, and how is it supported at HDS?
I'm wondering if I should put that answer in a chat. That way that another person can ask a question. So Mary Rose, I will answer you with my fingers.
Thank you, Jess. Pete asks, what are the different activities that often happen in the classroom? How do you manage attending 4 courses at the same time? It's an excellent question. Anybody have advice? Balance?
I can answer. I'll just say quickly that I found generally the classes I'm taking just by chance the last 3 semesters I've been here have been a nice mix of purely lecture classes and discussion-based courses where every day I'm in conversation with my peers. And so I think there is something about that can provide a better balance in terms of class preparedness for the lecture class. Like if you don't do all the reading, you don't have to say anything, you just sit there and listen and maybe finish it later. And for a discussion class, you can just be thinking about what you might want to contribute to the class as you're doing the reading. And I will say also that a similar panel I attended during our orientation, so a student mentioned that you just can't do all the reading, and that's been really useful advice for me to come back to. they suggested that you should just have a file folder on your computer for all of the interesting PDFs that you don't get to read for your classes, and just save them for later. And I've been doing that. And yeah, just thinking about the knowledge as cumulative and a marathon, not a race, and sort of taking the pressure off of myself in terms of perfecting my acquisition of material for every class has been really helpful, because as long as you're going to classes and engaging with the material, you're going to get a lot out of it, no matter how well you're keeping up. And I think similarly to the imposter syndrome question, you'll find that everyone at the school is experiencing the same struggles that you are, of balancing everything, of managing their course load and all of the activities they want to do. And so I found a lot of support from my peers as well.
Could I add one thing, Katie?
Yes, of course.
So for this semester, I'm taking a little too many classes. I find it actually really useful to get my energy out the first thing in the morning. That's been incredibly helpful. And I think there are many ways to go about this. I happen to be running a little bit and then walk a little. Of course, that's not for everybody. I think doing some stretching inside, somehow that structures my day, and then I sort of like knowing that I actually moved my body makes me actually focus a little bit more on reading. And another sort of thing that I really try to do is to ask questions. What do I want to get out of this text? What sounds really strange to me? Why am I struggling with this? So yeah, I think knowing that we're not going to cover every single detail. I love details, but I have to let go of some of the details. But ask questions have been really, really useful for me.
Thank you so much, Sakiko. We're coming up on the end of our time, but we have one last question. So does anybody want to share which course has been your favorite, most memorable, most challenging?
I also have been here 2.5 semesters. And my favorite course in my first semester was one of the Women's Studies in Religion program courses, which was one of the reasons that I came to HDS, to be able to center women in my courses. And so a class I took was on women and gender in Catholicism, taught by a professor who is at Colgate. And her engagement in class was really fun. It was a great community of learners and really fun questions to get to explore that taught me about the area of Catholic studies and its difference between theology, systematic theology and Catholic studies, as well as like asking questions about my own identity. And the professor also just was so willing to engage outside of class too, and was really fun to get to know and still stay in touch with.
Thank you, Mary. I know a few folks have entered theirs into their chat. Anybody else want to offer theirs as a closing? One of the challenges, one of the good things and bad things is that faculty change what classes they're offering every semester. So Mary mentioned the WSRP, Women's Studies in Religion program. Those are 5 scholars that change every year. So those classes are a one-time deal. But some of the courses are offered more than one semester. Some Molly mentioned Forgiveness by Matt Potts. That is one that he's offered a few times. Charlie Hallisey has gotten a lot of love tonight. He offers similar courses from year to year, or may alternate 1 year on, 1 year off for different courses. Some faculty do that as well. We're at 5:59. Anybody have any last thoughts they want to get out? Jess.
I just want to tell Mary Rose to email me because I was just trying to type in my email and then I clicked the wrong thing. So I don't know if I can just say like my email address, and I suppose this is useful for anyone who wants to drop me a line, is jyoungchang@hds.harvard.edu, and I'd be happy to talk more with you about it, Mary Rose.
Thank you, Jess. And if anybody who's attending has further questions for students, for any of our panelists, or students in general, you can refer back to that Ask Students contact email or any of the admissions contact information that Sarah provided. It looks like she's going to try and pop it in the chat quickly as well. And they can help facilitate that connection. Thank you, Sarah. They can help, admissions can help facilitate that connection as well. So feel free to reach out and they will get you connected to Jess or to anybody else you've seen today. We're at 6 o'clock. I want to thank all of our attendees for joining us. I want to thank our panelists for offering of themselves. You know, we're all Zoom fatigued, but, you know, happy to be here with you all virtually. And I hope you got some good information. I hope you apply. The worst you're going to hear is no. Hope to see you at open house events or at future admissions events. Please be in touch with any questions you have. We love to talk about HDS and ourselves. So we're happy to do it at any time. So thank you again very much, panelists, attendees. Have a lovely rest of your evening.
Thank you and goodbye.